We're back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our town hall. Today we are going to be discussing some things that you've heard about for several months, and we are trying to, as I mentioned earlier, trying to find ways to correct or to improve them or to find better ways around them. And most of this is around the ACC Blue Book and building code and homeowners and things that they do and shouldn't do, or things that they can do, or things that we've had in the book for years that everybody has, and so we're taking them out because it's just silly to have a rule in there that nobody's following. So there's just a bunch of things that we're going to talk about in that regard today, and hopefully we can clear up some of those things as we move forward. And again, welcome. I'm happy y'all. It's nice to see the room filled. That's great. All right, first of all, many of you remember me saying that if you came to any of these meetings, part of the problem is you would call me up and say, my neighbor has done X, Y, and Z, and it's against the Blue Books, and I can go to your neighbor and send them a letter or give them a call, and all I can do is go, bad boy, don't do it again. Because that's really all I can say to them. I don't have any fining rights. I don't have anything to say, you can't do this again. There's a couple things that for builders that I have more teeth in because I can pull their permit to build here and those kind of fun things. But outside of that, I didn't have any teeth. So part of the process that we've been doing is to take care of giving us the ability to make those changes, because in the past we've not. And many of you may or may not be aware of that in the process of purchasing the land from the developer, we also purchase the developer's rights. And in doing that, that allows us to make some amendments and some changes to what are referred to as the protective covenants. And I won't read all of these, but I'm going to go through some of them. And I'll go slow enough where if there's something you want to focus on, you'll be able to do that. And then when we get to the question and answer area, you'll be able to ask me questions about this. But the biggest deal is it allowed us to make changes in permitting, to authorize and give the ACC more leverage, and the ACC had to come up with more rules, so this kind of put a lot more effort on them. It also allows the POA to issue fines and to levy those fines on people's individual accounts. And also this evening we're going to talk about delinquencies. That's another thing that I've not talked about, and somebody brought it up and I said, you're right, I haven't mentioned that. So I'll talk about how the POA handles delinquencies and delinquent property owners. So all of these, the second reason we do this is to, some of this seems a little bit redundant, but there are a few catches in here. This particular item is talking about the Blue Book. Now, does everybody understand we have two different sets of rules? We have a Blue Book that affects the homeowners, and we have a Red Book which affects construction and commercial property. And so this actually bled into both of those. That's why I've kind of separated them and made some comments about that. The part that is also interesting, you as homeowners should be happy about, because I get very annoyed when I have to go to court, is that it also gives us the ability to recover. We can go to the court and say, hey, we had the right to do this, and so the attorney's fees need to be paid by the offending party, not by the POA. In the past, I know this probably comes as somewhat a surprise, we could not do that. So now we can. And this deals with the Red Book and the Blue Book here as well. And one of the things that it also allows us to do is to, and I'm not sure you'll understand this, but I'll get into it a little more clearly. Is everybody getting the feedback? I'm getting feedback up here. Can you hear feedback back there? Okay, good. No worries. The levying fines and the cost of litigation, what that actually means is in the past, I couldn't, and we'll talk about the process, but in the past I could send you a letter and say you need to fix this, and you've got 10 days to fix it. That will not change. We will continue to send that letter. And at the end of 10 days, now I have to send you a letter and say, well, you need to fix that. Well, if the board passes this, and by the way, I did not mention that all of the things you're seeing tonight have not been approved. I'm bringing to you ahead of time before the board votes on them. So that you understand that, okay? It's not, this is not, oh, by the way, after the fact, this is what you get. This is what's happening now, and I wanted to bring it to you ahead of time to have you review that. And that was the board's suggestion, too, to be clear. That's not the gospel according to Chet. The board wanted to do that themselves. So, once we've done that, we send out that letter, then today, I can only go, please fix it. And now, if this is approved by the board and if these are put forward and filed with the county, I can then do, my second letter would be, you have 10 days to remediate this, or there will be a fine every day beyond this date that you haven't finished it. Now, what does that mean? Because I think, in every case, everybody goes, well, how are you going to collect that? Well, I'm going to give you the choice. I'm going to give you the choice of paying it, or I'll put it on your account, your POA account. And it will sit on that account until it's paid, and there will be fees attached, late fees attached, and all of those things, which currently happens for anybody who is delinquent on their POA account. And it's based on the total, and so this will be a part of that total, and it will accumulate. There is a point in time, and this is true of almost every state I've worked in, there's a point in time where the court says you need, as a POA, to make a decision. You can't just keep charging them money. And so as a POA, we have the right to put a lien on a home. And once we put a lien on a home, then that stays there for a certain period of time, and then the court comes to us and says, what are you going to do about this? And then we have to foreclose. And so the reason I'm pointing out all this is this is where our world got serious now. Your homes can be put in jeopardy because you won't mow your lawn. Your homes can be put in jeopardy because you won't take care of something around it within this POA. And I'm not here to tell you by any shade of the imagination how you should maintain your home outside of the rules the POA has set up. Period. That's not my job. But the rules we have, and this is why you're going to see things come and go in the rules that were used to be there, and I'll pinpoint a few of them that have been somewhat difficult. But we want to be clear about this, and I don't want anybody to be surprised. When we start fining is something that goes on your account, and it has to be paid. Now, the other side of that coin is that if I send you that letter and I say within 10 days I'm going to fine you X number of dollars a day until you remediate the problem, you also have the right then to come back to me and say, well, hey, I don't get it. I want to talk to somebody about this. Then we put everything on pause and we get you in to have a conversation about it. Now, if the conversation goes your way and we go, you know what, we really didn't understand, I get it now, you've taken care of it, we're good. If it goes the other way, even though we've put it on pause, we go back to the same date. All I'm trying to do is give you the opportunity to explain something we may not understand, and I'm not doing this. I need to be clear on that. I keep saying that, and that's inappropriate. The ACC and the board make that decision. It is a committee decision. I actually don't have any control over it. There's a clock, and it just keeps running based on the rules that they've set out. So, in combination with what you just saw, we've been making some changes. Now, some of these things I'm going to pause on, and some of them are, kind of like watching paint dry. But just to be clear, one of the things that we've had that's become almost entertainment in the ACC meetings is what's defined by a miscellaneous permit. And so they decided, and if you look at all the 47 things they marked out, anytime you see something on this screen that is red with lines through it, it means it's gone. It's not there anymore. So the top line is the key one. All exterior changes to the home or lot other than installation of plantings or trees shall require a miscellaneous permit. Pretty straightforward, nothing crazy, should be straightforward. Now, the bottom line is also very important. Maintenance, sorry, I wish it were higher, I guess, right here. Maintenance or replacement with the same color and type does not require a permit. Meaning, if you're replacing your roof and you're replacing it with the same shingles and the same color, it's just deteriorated and you want to put it back right, you don't need a permit to do that. If you want to paint your house the exact same color, it needs to be painted you don't need a permit. And so those are the kinds of things that we wanted to kind of clear up, because it became a question all the time. And as you can see, when you start getting into carports, garages, driveways, sidewalks, patios, it becomes ridiculous after a while. And it's just simpler to say anything. You make any change to the exterior of your house, you need a permit, unless it's this bottom line. Then we got into the hot tub world and spas. And we finally came up with language for this because there's been some entertaining events with hot tubs. So, no, I'm not talking about people in the hot tubs. I'm talking about the hot tubs. Come on now. Anyway, so now the new rules are you can have a maximum size of a hot tub that is 10 by 10 feet, and it cannot stick up off the ground or up off the material unless we put it on a deck, the ground, whatever it's sitting on. Can't be higher than 4 feet. There's all the other, I mean, to be frank with you, all this other stuff, what have I done? Can everybody hear me? Oh, it's on right now. Houston, do we have ignition? There we go. Can you hear me? Good, cool. So I usually talk loud enough that I can hardly tell when this goes on or off. But anyway, one of the things that, all this other stuff you see in red are basically either they're things like, for instance, hot tubs must be screened, visible from the street or the golf course. All of those have always been there. That's no change. And then there's some comments about the county, it has to meet county code and all those kind of things, all which we have no control over, but we put it in there to remind you, you got to do that. Landscaping and structures. This has been a entertaining problem from day one. One of the problems was previous language, which is here somewhere. Whoops, sorry. Where'd it go? There we go. Previous language made some comments about in the area that sits between your house, the easement for utilities and that sort of thing, you cannot have structures or plantings. Well, the problem with that, if any of you have ever lived here, is that 75 to 80% of the homes in this community, as of this time when I'm standing in front of you, and I'm doing that again, this time standing in front of you, they have them already. In fact, when they built the house, they left trees in this. So I don't, whoa. One more time. Can you hear me now? Wow, we're just having entertainment. Anyway, so that rule. Okay, we're going to catch it from. Yeah, wow. Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me. So we made the decision to make it clear that plantings in that area have no bearing on it. They're either there, or if you put plantings in that area, with the understanding that if for some reason someday we have to go back into that utility area to do something, that we will take out those plants and we will not put them back. If you want them back, you can put them back. And so we don't, I did not want to, and that was something in there that was obvious to me when they said, well, you can't have plantings in that area. Well, I said, well, it's a little late since I just built a house, and guess what's in that area? Trees, and I didn't even plant them. So that's why I'm saying we made some changes in that regard. We did not make changes in, and we still have in there, that structures cannot be put in that area at all. And structures is defined by anything built. Oh, good, that one's out. So, meaning fences, bird houses, dog houses, a gazebo that hangs out in that area, you can't put them in there. You just can't. Because if we have to go in there and we take them out, then there's really hard feelings about you took out my fence and you took out my gazebo and all of those things, and it just doesn't work, and it's not applicable. And of course, if it happens to not be us specifically who's taking that out, then it becomes even more entertaining. Okay. Then we made some decisions on artificial decorations. I won't make any comments about pink flamingos. And their roof materials and structures. A lot of this stuff is not new, it's clarification, or it's just being more detailed in what we say. And I don't know, I can't remember if it shows up in here, but I'll cover two things that I know that everybody has in their minds. We took out the thing about no fountains in the front yard, and that there's 487 houses in the community that have fountains in the front yard. We decided that was probably a good time to take it out. So that's no longer there either. Okay, rental permits. We have set down some guidelines for rentals and for long-term rentals versus short-term rentals. And some of this stuff is not, to be frank with you, new or out of the ordinary. Again, we're just putting it in writing. However, one of the things that is going to come up from all this is, remember we talked about you have to maintain your yard, you have to do all those things. Well, in the past, rentals theoretically, not all the time, but theoretically have a name for being not taking care of their houses. Well, unfortunately, I would have to argue that there are probably just as many homeowners who don't take care of their homes. So the point of all this is to deal with the permitting process. In terms of rules and regulations for rentals, they have to apply just like everybody else. A rental can't have a messy yard, a homeowner can't have a messy yard. A rental can't have bad paint jobs, a homeowner can't have. So there's no difference, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But this is to deal with specifically the permitting of it and how we go about that permitting and what is short-term lease and what is long-term lease. And I think everybody pretty much knows that short-term lease is anything less than 6 months. In Florida, they play a little tax game. Most people rent their houses for 6 months and a day. So it's just outside the short-term rental, so they don't have to pay the tax. Okay, and this is all the usual stuff. Now, one of the things that is, and I've highlighted this because I want everybody to understand, the ACC is a committee that is, oh, and one other thing, because I see people taking pictures, which you're welcome to do, all this is online. This whole presentation will be online, so you don't have to worry about if you miss something or you want to get something in detail, the whole presentation's there, so not to worry. Anyway, all of this is predicated on the board's acceptance and the rules, and anytime, as many of you have seen, there are people who go for, what's the term, when they come before the board to get a, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Variance, thank you. Somebody remembered besides me. Wow. Anyway, a variance, then the board has to vote on that still. So none of this is outside the board's purview. We aren't waving our magic wand. The process still has to happen. And the ACC is still required to follow these rules. And then once there is a question, it goes before the board to be reviewed as well. Okay, now comes the part everybody was really curious about. And I'm sorry that I'm in a bad angle to see this, but you're probably going to want to go online and take a look at this because there's a lot of detail. And the moral of the story is that in some cases, there will be a one-time fine. In other cases, there will be a fine per day, depending on what the problem is. And back to my original comment about the court looks at this in a very specific way. As a POA, we don't want to, but we really can't let this go on forever. More or less, if I'm charging you, for argument's sake, I'm charging you $100 a day because you refuse to put your shutters back up or paint them or repair them, right? And it's gone on for a month. So now we're up to $3 grand in fines. At that point, for the POA to keep doing that, it really becomes punitive. We're not trying to solve the problem, we're trying to make money. And that's not the game. And I need to be really clear on that. The only reason any of this exists is to try and change behavior. It costs us more to maintain this and manage it than it does that we'll ever get out of it in money. And so I don't want to go down the road of, oh, POA is trying to make more money. We aren't. All I'm trying to do is convince people to do the right thing. And very often, the only way I can convince them to do that is to hurt their pocketbook. And so that's why these are in place. Most of these rules are going to be straightforward to you, like the ones I've mentioned. Some of them are more specific than others. And all of these, by the way, were put together and planned and sent to the board by the ACC. This is definitely not the gospel according to Chet.
Chet, when does the board vote on all this?
Next board meeting. So, violations on rentals and home occupations and that sort of thing. We don't have, and that term is very kind of a tricky one. In the state of Tennessee, not Loudoun County, not Tellico Village, the state of Tennessee, there is no such thing as an occupancy law. And the term for that means if you have a 3-bedroom house, you can only have 6 people stay there. That's the normal occupancy law. What this is talking about is you can't rent your house out because you didn't get a permit. You can't have it occupied by somebody who is not a homeowner if you don't have an appropriate rental permit. And it's trivial to get. That's the thing that always kind of found fascinating. It's not like they got to go through 47 pages of paperwork and, go before the Sanhedrin and be blessed or whatever. It's, you fill out the form, you pay the money, you're done. And so, and it's a one-pager. So for all of you who rent, I am definitely not trying to get in your world. I'm trying to organize it. I'm trying to know how many of you there are, but I don't want to fix what you do. And I don't want to change your business. And I don't think the POA at this point wants to change your business. But we do want to be sure that the community, and that it is a private community, has rules, and those rules are followed by everyone, not just the renters, but everyone. Okay, last but not least, how are delinquent property owners handled? This is our normal path, for lack of a better way of putting it. Homeowner becomes late with their assessments, and I don't know if you can read that or not. I tried to pick a color that was easier to read, but basically, if you're overdue for 30 days, they send you a letter and say, hey, by the way, you owe us money. And so then it goes down to 45 days out. Then we turn your name over to a collection agency and they go after you. And after 90 days out, then we begin to look at going for I think there's a period of time between 90 and 120 days where the collection agency deals with us about what do we want to do one way or the other. At that point, the demand letter goes out from the attorney. This is what you owe us. You need to get it paid. If they refuse or don't respond, then we put a lien on their house, back to that lien thing, and take it to court. Now, as it turns out, you'll see down at the bottom, and because the big question is, okay, Chet, that's all well and good. How many do we have? There are only 82 properties currently delinquent. Out of those 82, 9 of them are homes, and 73 of them are property. And the reality of it is the majority of them always have been property owners, not necessarily homeowners. So one of the things to keep in mind is not very long ago, we had 1,000 homes, 1,000 pieces of property that were delinquent. And we've gone through quite a bit of work to clean that up, and we've put things in place like, for instance, a developer can't come in anymore and buy, 100 lots. He can only come in and buy 10 at a time. And what was happening is developers were coming in and buying 100 lots or 200 lots. And then they would go out, have a big campaign to sell them, walk away from them, and the homeowners who bought those lots had no idea they had dues. And so we're out here chasing all these people down, trying to figure out where they are. Anyway, we learned the lesson. You can't do that, and you can't allow it to happen. And so we've cleaned all those up, and we're down to 82, which is, for a property this size, fantastic. It's not good, it's fantastic. And that number is always going to be there in some form or another. It will never be zero. I've never worked a single property that didn't have some person, and it's usually not all bad. Most of the time it's a homeowner has died and their kids didn't realize what they needed to take care of. And 2 or 3 letters and you're done. But there is a moment in time where it's a delinquent account and it shows up as a delinquent account and we have to work through it. So that's pretty much the dance I had for you. I know you can only take that so much of me rattling on. So, all those things being said, what you got? If you got questions, microphone is there. Oh, by the way, please keep your questions down to like 3 minutes or so. And remember, if somebody's already asked it, please don't come back and ask the same question, because asking me 3 times the same question will not change my answer. Most of the time, anyway.
Chet, could you clarify on the landscaping structure? Okay, that seemed to be a little foggy between the person that was inspecting and the person sometimes when you reach on the phone.
So, first, your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Rick Rossetto. I'm in,
Thank you, Rick. I was just, you know,
142
it's being
Delaware
filmed. I
Way.
need to get your name in there.
They told me if I didn't cement anything down, like a barrier wall,
Uh-huh. I think that
that,
there
that
are,
that wasn't considered a structure.
I think that anytime you're going to build something, and if you're hoping you can ask me a question, I can have an answer on what the ACC is going to say, I regret that I must inform you that ain't going to happen. I don't know.
Okay, well
So
then-
my suggestion, and I'm not being funny, I'm being sincere here now. Anytime you want to build something in your yard, that's why we worded that miscellaneous permit the way we did. Anytime you want to do something, I'm not telling you that we're going to say, no, you can't do that. We're just going to say, okay, we don't care about that. Go ahead. If you're putting in a plant and you want to put in a trellis behind it, the ACC may or may not care about that, depending on how the trellis is installed.
Right.
And if you're going to put in a boxed garden in the backyard, I'm not sure how they're going to respond to that yet. Another thing, and I'm happy you brought this up, one of the things that we are still working on, that the ACC nor the board have come up with a good answer, but it's one we must, and that is, we have all these laws about you can do certain things in the front yard and you can do certain things in the backyard, and never the twain shall meet, right? Well, what happens when you live in a community where your backyard has a street on it and your front yard has a street on it? Oh, wait, and you live on the corner. I mean, if there were only one lot, I'd say that's not that funny, but it isn't more than one lot, it's several. And so we've got to come up with a good answer for that, and it's not a simple task, it really isn't. So those are the things we're working on. So my answer to you is, if you want to build something in your yard, structure, whether it has to do with plantings or just anything, ask the question, call, because those people are going to be held accountable for what they tell you based on these rules by me.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying, because I did call,
Sure.
okay, and I got an answer.
Yep.
Landscaper comes in, he's working on everything.
Yep.
Guy comes out and stops him. So I guess it would be nice if, when they say structure, if they can clarify that a little bit.
Well, I think, again, that's why I'm saying,
Even
it's
for
not really
themselves.
their job to qualify structure, it's your job to tell them what it is you're going to put in. And
Right.
then they have to tell you, okay, that meets our qualifications for something that is a structure, and that doesn't meet our qualifications for something as a structure. I mean, Clayton, am I missing something there, brother?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
The, one said it was not a structure,
Uh-huh.
and one person said it was a structure.
So
So that's why I'm saying a clarification would be nice.
that's, and I really hate stepping out there and saying this out loud, but when you get to that point, you call the boss.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
Get
Hi, my name is
gotta
Pat
get in
White.
line.
I'm a board member.
Oh, Pat, it's been so
Yeah.
long. How are you?
Yeah, I
brother?
did not see up there, and then we've had a lot of discussion about this over and over and over. And I would hate for everybody to walk out thinking that there is a fee for every permit, because there is not, correct?
That is correct, and I should have brought that up.
So if I have an idea that you or me.
I'm just happy it's not me, Pat. That's all I can say.
Well, I do have a reputation of talking too much. So anyway, but you do not will always have to pay a fee.
That is correct. Sometimes the permit is just so that we acknowledge that you came down and asked, and we're good with it, and you don't have to pay for that.
Right. And also, not wanting to pit neighbor against neighbor, we would like to have each of the neighbors talk to one another. But if they don't, and there is a permit, right?
Right. So to that end, I would like to put in something that is just a personal opinion of mine, and that I do live in the neighborhood, and I do have great neighbors, and I do spend a lot of time talking to them, and they spend a lot of time talking to me, and it's all good. But that's the key. I spend a lot of time talking to them, they spend a lot of time talking to me. Treat each other with respect, we're neighbors. Don't look for ways to get at your neighbor. If you don't like something they're doing, just have a conversation about it. Take a beer over and say, hey, what are you doing? Let's talk about it. Because we're neighbors. We have to behave like neighbors, not adversaries. Sometimes I listen to some of these discussions that come into the ACC, and I feel like I'm in the United Nations. No, we're not two foreign countries here. We're next door neighbors. We have to behave like that. We have to seek the best for all who are in us, and we have to believe. I often say something, and people laugh at me when I say sometimes I'm being Pollyannish, and for some of you, you may not even know where that expression comes from. But in the movie Pollyanna, everybody's constantly saying, you're always seeing the good in people. That's just silly. But she quotes one of my favorite presidents, President Lincoln. And I'd like you all to kind of take this to heart, because it's really true. And I try and follow that when I'm dealing with homeowners who are really upset and really angry. And that is, if you look for the worst in people, you're guaranteed to find it. But the reverse of that is just as true. If you look for the good, you will find it. And so that's what I ask of y'all is please, as you deal with your neighbors, as you deal with all these different things, look for the good. That's the best thing we can do for each other. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is John Olson. I live in the Tanasi neighborhood on the Tecumseh Peninsula. And I'd like to ask a question on the traffic congestion on 444. TV build-out is about 5 to 7 years away. At that time, there are going to be about 5,500 homes along 444.
It's more like 64. But
Pardon me?
it's more like 64.
64. I'll use 55, but 64 is fine. Along Tellico Parkway between Route 72 and Poplar Springs, which is a distance of a little under 8 miles. If you continue using the Cooper design, your only avenue out of a neighborhood is to get in your car and drive out to 444. So if you go 2 people per house, 1 car per person, 6,400, you would have 12,800 cars sitting in Tellico Village between Route 72 and Poplar Springs, waiting to get out on 444 at any time. So my question is, what is the board's plan to reduce the traffic congestion on 444?
Okay, well, I can tell you what I'm going to take to the board, but I can't tell you what the board's decision is going to be. One of the things that we're looking at, and I know you're aware of this, is putting in pathways that are wide enough and functional enough for carts on all our back roads. There are a couple places where you can connect 2 streets across common area with a path, where if you had a cart on that, you literally could go on this side of 44, almost from one end of the community to the other until you hit Clear Creek, just following golf paths or roads. And that's one way of doing it. On the other side, if we were to take and put in a path from 444 at Maple Hill all the way to the first, is it I can't pronounce these names.
Good luck, I can't pronounce the name.
It looks like Wawawoo or something like that. Anyway, that's not Wahoo, but it's something. Anyway, if we put a path through there, you literally could drive from that end of the community, Tanasi Hills, all that stuff, all the way past the clubhouse, all the way down. And so if we could set up those kinds of back roads of doing it, you would have the ability to use your golf cart to get around. Now, that's the really great news. Here comes the really bad news. I'm now going to put golf carts on the same road as cars. So, good, bad, or indifferent, we have several steps to get through. I think it's a great idea. I think it's important to reduce that congestion. I think, I don't know as a fact, but there's places like Peachtree City, south of Atlanta, where cars are almost never seen and golf carts are the common thing to be used. I don't know that we'll ever get to that, but we may get to the point, if the access is there, where there are many cars left in the garage and they're using golf carts to get around. We'll have to see. I don't know if it's possible or not. Long-range planning is looking at me like I've got 6 heads, but that's okay. We'll get to try that and see what's going on, and if we can do it. But I think that we are going to have to get, I mean, his numbers are not necessarily wrong, and we aren't getting any smaller, and his numbers that he just brought up forgets one major problem. All the 487 million people who live all the way around us and love to take 444 from one end to the other.
That's right.
So, I mean, that's, and I've only lived here, and this is the part where everybody says, oh, well, people are just exaggerating. I've lived here since September of last year, and it's doubled since I've been here. So I know that nobody's exaggerating this. I've lived it. So, and it's happening quickly. I don't know if it's because of growth outside of us. I don't know if it's because the industrial area over here is growing and there's more worker traffic. I'm not sure what it is, but I do know that the traffic just keeps escalating. It's not getting less. And so we've done things like gone to the county and requested that they do a road study to put a traffic light at Sequoia and Maple Hill, which would allow us to be able to put that path in. And they've also already approved for us to have a circle, and I've gone to the State Road Commission, I believe is the name of it. Well, no, it's who funds TDOT. And they're asking for funds to be able to put in the circle down where the food line is. And so that process has started, and we're getting toward that. And if we can get that circle in there, that would slow down the traffic enough. And by the way, I know that everybody kind of hates circles to a certain degree, and there's a challenge in driving circles for some reason. But the good news is semis really hate circles. So all of a sudden that cut through is not as convenient as it used to be. And so those are the kinds of things that we have to look at to try and mitigate what we're dealing with. Now, I know I didn't answer your question, but that's the direction we're going.
I'll just throw out to everybody that you talked about roundabouts and whatnot. I don't think people know that there are 25 intersections between Route 72 and Poplar Springs, 7 four-way and 18 three-way that are going to have to be addressed when we move forward to pulling people out onto 444. The last time this was brought up, I think the Greenway was brought up at $1 million a mile.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea, maybe, we're more than 10,000 and less than 10 million, or about where we might be?
What I just described to you is not that expensive. I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars to put a couple roads that run between, or that connects 2 different roads in the area, or even a road that would go alongside the Maple Hill to get back to one of our roads. That's not, we aren't talking we're probably not even talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're probably talking tens of thousands of dollars to get that done. And so it's not crazy money to make it happen, but we have to think it through and kind of have a plan about what we're going to do. Because, I say it tongue in cheek, but I have to tell you, I've lived and managed properties over the last 20 years where cars and golf carts do not always see eye to eye. Or when they do, it's not good. And so it is important that everyone begin to understand that if we went that way, cars would have to be polite, golf carts would have to have actual brake lights and blinkers and those kinds of fun things. And so we would have to, accommodate, for lack of a better word. We see those signs everywhere, please accommodate the bicycles on the side. Well, we may have to put up signs, please accommodate the golf cart in front of you. But those are our only choices. If we had sidewalks, if we had all those things, it would be a different story. We don't. And that's probably never going to happen. and a greenway at $1 million a mile is a hard sell. It's not even one I'd try and sell, to be honest, but.
I'll just say, I kind of looked at that, and you would connect from Tomatli all the way down to Tokwa, doing, I think, what you said, and that would incorporate something like 2,750 homes at present. Not quite half of the homes. In a demonstration project, I guess is what you
Sure,
have to say was.
sure. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Do we have any consideration what utilization of golf carts would do to parking space density?
Well,
On the
parking spaces,
amenities?
period, is going to be another issue, because when we get into parking, that opens up all kinds of doors and all kinds of issues. To be frank with you, all of the injuries that I had at the last property I managed was either golf cart to golf cart or golf cart to car, and they all had to do with parking lots. So it is a problem when we start trying to deal with parking. Right now, I'd love it if we could just get people to be able to not have to get on 44 and drive through the community without having to be worried about getting hit in there in a car by another car, much less in a golf cart. And so those are my first choices. But I think that parking and accommodating parking for golf carts would obviously give us theoretically more parking, for sure.
Yeah. I just did a quick calculation. If you look at where parking we have at Tanasi right now, I think you said something like 126-ish in
Yeah.
parking spaces. If you took that 50% for cars, 50% of the parking area for golf carts, the present space at Tanasi would accommodate 290 vehicles, which
Sure.
is what we want, with no change to anything else around the complex. So I personally think it has a big impact on everything else we're doing here.
It could. And the real issue, I got a quick question, and this is where I'm going with it. And you don't have to respond if you don't want to, but how many people in this audience have a golf cart? Okay. I don't think we even have half that have golf carts. So that's going to be the next issue. And so anyway, but I think it's worth looking at, and I think the numbers are there to make it a value to look at and see. But again, the community, we're back to that whole thing of I have to serve the community, and the community needs to be telling me what they have in mind and what they think is useful for them. Because I can come up with all kind of plans.
And this is in front of the Long Range Committee right now?
All of it will be in front of the board and the Long Range Committee, because we have all kinds of parking things we have to discuss.
Okay. So it'll be voted on by the,
I don't know that it will be voted on, but it will definitely be actively discussed in the board. Because I am flattered that you guys think I have this much power. It really does. But I have no power to tell the board what to vote. They have to vote the way they feel is best for the community. And so when I say they'll vote on it at the next board meeting is pure hyperbole. It just, if they decide to, cool. If they don't, that's good. My task is to give the best answers I can and give them the best information I can so they have the right information to make a choice from. And there's a period at the end of that sentence.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time.
My name is Jerry Williams. I have a simple question, hypothetical type question, based on miscellaneous permits. And I read across one of the early entries in your presentation, and you talked about, like, painting a door, for example.
Yes.
So I hypothetically have a white door right now.
Yep.
I want to paint it black. So I have to get, if I read this correctly, I would have to get a miscellaneous permit, correct? How much would that cost me?
I don't have an answer for that because right now my answer would be zero off the top of my head. Now, the gotcha in this is I have a white door and I want to paint it Pepto-Bismol pink. Then there's going to be a problem. So in theory, the answer should be nothing to paint your door.
Okay, on your example of pink, would someone come out and, would you perceive someone would come out and inspect that I had painted it pink, even though I had said it was going to be black or something like that? And then fine me?
Yes is the short
And
answer.
then take over, put my house in foreclosure? for.
Well, okay, so you took an awful lot of steps there.
I know, I skipped a
I'm
few.
just saying, there's just a ton of things that could have gone
But it's all
way
hypothetical.
different in that
It's all
process.
hypothetical.
So theoretically, what should happen is you get a permit, you tell me you're going to paint your door black, and I come out and it's pink. Well, no, we don't fine you. We come back to you and say, you said you were going to paint it black. How come it's pink? What do we need to do? Can we get that changed? And that's the end of the story. And then we don't, again, please do not leave this room thinking the board or the community is trying to come up with a way to make money. We're just trying to keep the rules going in the right direction. That's all.
Well, I'm not trying to be a hard ass. I'm just trying to understand a little bit
No,
better.
no, it's all good. It's all good. Your
Thank
question
you
is a
for
fair
your
one.
time, everybody.
You bet.
Hi, Chet. Eric Spalding. I saw up there the rules about long-term, short-term rentals.
Yes.
Saw nothing about like weekly rentals or people that are doing that.
Okay,
Is-
so I need to be clear, and if I didn't
Okay.
define that, I
Well,
apologize.
I probably didn't read it.
Short-term rentals is anything from a day to 6 months.
Okay.
Anything in between is considered a short-term rental. Anything beyond 6 months and a day is long-term.
So separate permit for each individual rental or just for?
Oh, no, you have a house, you have a permit.
And permitted to rent it for
A
a
year.
week at a time?
Every year you update your permit.
Ah, okay. It's clear.
Yeah. Simple enough.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good afternoon.
Good
I
afternoon.
am Liz Hall, and we have come from a community very much like this, in that there were rules and regulations that were quite adhered to, and I know that we have an ACC.
Yes,
Do we have compliance officers that actually go out and periodically, we have such a huge volume where in Arizona we did not. It was a lot more people in a lot less space, but we had people that were out patrolling, and that's what they were called. So do we have any wherewithal, or do we already have those kind of things in place that can troubleshoot and spot and get back to the ACC and say, this property is not in compliance? We need to act on that.
Yes, ma'am. It's called the code enforcement, and that we have a group of gentlemen who do that. And they operate on several levels. They operate with both construction and with individual homeowners.
Okay.
And so, as an example, he gets his permit to paint his door black. Well, they're going to be around in a week to see if that door is black or not. And if it's not black, then they're going to be calling him up and saying, hey, you asked, you wanted to do that? What can we do to get this corrected? And then go from there. And they're also driving through the community going, the 7-foot fake palm tree in the front yard. We're going to have to do something about that.
It just seemed occasionally it's quite egregious, and that's why I was asking how often they get around, keeping in mind that we're so large.
Yes, ma'am.
It's extremely hard. I don't know what the manpower is, but I'm delighted that you do that because it seems that there are things that fall through the cracks.
Yes, ma'am.
That's understandable.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
knowing that there's something and you're putting some teeth in this is a very good thing.
Yes, ma'am, and that's the goal, because right now, even if I had another 30 guys going out and doing this, we'd be still finding stuff. But the reality of it is the moment you tell somebody they're going to get fined $100 a day until they take down the 4-foot metal windmill in their front lawn, then it has teeth. And I don't necessarily always have to be the guy who shows up to see it. They know all they have to do is be found, and there's a $100 fine coming their way, and they don't really want to be a part of that. The other side of this, and this is typical of all POAs. This is not unique to you all, so please don't take it that way. But in the past, there has been a significant amount of do it first and ask for forgiveness later. And so we've modified the rules that say, oh, you can do it first, but there's no forgiveness, you're fined. Then you have to come back and see if we'll allow you to do that. And if we will, great, you'll buy the permit and you'll go through the process. If we will not, you will have to take it out. Now, that's the way it's set up. Again, remember, board has not voted on this yet, but that is the reason that's put in place there, is to keep people from being able to do the, put it in and ask for forgiveness. Yes, sir.
Chet, Mike Robbins, Mialaco area. Thank you for bringing it up, by the way, today, that issue with neighbors should be compromising with each other, whether it's something that's visual or that one can hear, which is a common law nuisance. Hopefully, with all the people that are moving into the community, everybody can adhere to that. That was very nice of you to bring that up. Chet, there's two things I'd like to address to you and the board today. When we all move into a HOA or POA, usually one's made aware of the fact, if they're new or past neighborhood, that there's going to be rules and regulations. Most of the neighborhoods that I've lived in the past did have fines set up. So it's good that we're catching up to that. It's a little surprising that it was let go this far. And it's a good idea that there are rules and regulations, that there are fines. It gives you and the board something to sink their teeth into. The other thing that was brought up by a few of our member residents was that no discussion came up yet today on the Tanasi build. I wanted to mention, if that was going to be brought up at all today, a lot of people are moving into Tennessee. We're getting halfbacks now, or from Florida. We're getting people from up
I'm
north.
offended by that term.
Well, that is a realtor term, but we're getting the halfbacks from Florida. They're not going back up north. We're getting people from up north that are not going to South or North Carolina. By the way, the land of golf carts down there is Peachtree, Georgia. That's all where the golf carts are at the high school, everything. There's no cars in the whole city hardly.
That's right.
People aren't going to Georgia, Alabama. They're not going to South or North Carolina. When you talk to people and you ask them, what did you check out, whether you used to live at a Del Webb or you live here, everyone's picking out Tennessee for certain reasons. So because Nashville now is getting to be known as Nash Vegas, you can't drive through Franklin or Spring Hill, Tennessee anymore. It's very important, and I know that you're positive on this, that you and our board members look at the fact that East Tennessee now is on the radar. We need to do what we need to do with Tanasi. If there's approximately $17 million in our fund, if we have to put in another 4 or 5 plus the $4 million we're going to get, we have to look at the future, not just what's happening now. And if you could embellish on that a little bit, but I wanted to bring that up.
So my only embellishment is that the board and I are going through that process in detail to come back to the committee and give us some very specific guidelines from the board so that we can review what the best process is for that. Because the board's not ignorant of this at all. And the board understands that they have to manage their fiduciary responsibilities as well as build to the future. And that's the dance that we have to dance.
And the attraction on that's going to be remarkable, some of the other changes you guys are making with the community too. But Tellico Village is starting to get known in other states more so than before, and thanks for doing this today.
Oh, no worries. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Karen Paul, and I live in Tanasi, and I have a question about something that I heard at the POA meeting the last time. There were 2 board members that spoke about the green of number 9, and they were very adamant that they didn't want to see that move to the other side of the water. My question is that if we don't do that, and we have been told that it's possible, it can be done, it can still be a par 4, it can still be a challenging hole. If we don't do that, are we really going to have room for the parking that we need and the new clubhouse? I've never thought that 9 was our signature hole, which it was referred to. I've always thought that 10 was our signature hole. And it does have a beautiful panoramic view, which I would personally like to see again from the clubhouse. But that clubhouse is never going to be more than just a pipe dream if we don't get some bids and find out how much it's going to cost. And I don't see anybody moving forward with that. In fact, I was really disappointed at the last POA meeting when it looked like we were moving forward, and all of a sudden, now we're not moving forward. We've already waited a year, and the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost. And so we need to get on board with getting those, I don't know what needs to happen, who needs to give the secret handshake, but we need to get some bids so that we can find out what it's going to cost and get our clubhouse built. Because I'm not getting any younger, and none of these folks are either, and I want to see it happen.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I can tell you that the progress has not necessarily gone on hold. We are still reviewing it. We're having meetings with the board. I'm meeting with the board and going over details. We're meeting with the architect. We are moving ahead. We're not dead in the water. So if that's how it feels, I'm sorry that it's not. It's not dead in the water, and we are moving ahead. And I think everyone on the board is completely and fully aware of all the ramifications of dragging our feet. So we need to get it done, one way or the other. Yes, sir.
My name is Ed Heilman. I've only got 2 observations.
Go ahead.
The first observation I have is who's going to go around and take the pictures of all these houses so that you can find out what's grandfathered and what's not grandfathered before you make all these changes and all this stuff about who can have this and who can't have that. There's some of us have been around here over 20 years that we had things put in back in those days when it was legal. Now you're making changes that we don't know. Do I have to take pictures of my house and bring it over so that you can see what it looks like now?
No, I think what's going to happen is they'll always, and I guess if I've implied something different, I need to keep saying it. There's always going to be discussion. As an example, I'm very annoyed that I can't put up my 6-foot privacy fence around my house because 2 doors down from me, there's a 6-foot privacy fence. Granted, it was put up in the 80s, but I can't do that anymore. Why? Because that's against the rules. So and that house had.
I'd say that has to be worked out.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's the only point I'm making. The
Absolutely.
other point I'm going to say is, I know you don't have anything to do with what they're going to do in 444. Most of the traffic on 444 are not in this village. Most of our people going from 72 up through and over to 321 and back and forth.
Sure.
Workers.
We're a
all
wonderful
day.
cut through.
They're all day long. But here's the thing. You put a roundabout down there and somebody needs to talk about this. A roundabout down there, you're going to have more wrecks than you got now. People don't know how to handle a roundabout. If you don't believe me, now I'm saying now, if you don't believe me, go up to Park West and look at the roundabouts they got up there and tell me how many tires have ridden over the top of the roundabouts.
Oh, I am painfully aware.
They don't work.
I've been trying to be polite about that.
England makes roundabouts that are as wide as this damn building.
Sure.
You can't do it with a roundabout up there. You're blocked because of gas lines.
Well, we already looked at that, and the gas lines don't come within the range of what that.
Then
of
you're
what
not building
they're
the damn thing big
prescribing.
enough.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is
That's
we
what I'm
can
saying.
argue about whether
You
it's
can
big
minimize
enough or
it,
not, but.
yeah, but it's still not going to work.
Well, that fortunately is up to TDOT.
That's what I
not
said.
me. Yeah.
You don't have any skin in the game. But
Right.
somebody needs to know that.
Oh, yeah.
They ought to get
absolutely.
that to them and have them verify what they're doing.
You
That's all
bet.
I got to say.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chet. My name's Chris Napier. I live at 182 in Nuga Way, and I would like to bring this back to the short-term rentals that we started with, I think. And I lived near a short-term rental, vacation rental, actually, for the last 2 years, and it's been not good. It's not been the experience that I hoped it would be moving here to Tellico Village, living next to somebody's continuous vacation all the time. And it's hard to say even where I want to go with all this. But, so, we already have some things in place. I'm very glad for the things that you're bringing up here to do, and it will give us some teeth. We do have some things, but we're not doing them right now. I mean, if you look at the short-term rental agreement that's on there now, it says that failure of any owner to comply with any requirements set forth in the Blue Book shall result in revocation of the ACC home occupation permit for any living unit. I mean, that's already in there. Yet, how many have we revoked?
Well, that's, the real question is it's hard for me, and this is one of the reasons why I keep bringing this up, and I keep saying it because I mean it. It's hard for me to go after a homeowner who is renting and who has indeed violated one of the ACC rules when his two neighbors on both sides of him down the street who are not renting are doing the exact same thing, and they're not getting dinged either. So I have to walk a very fine line
Well, we can't
here.
play that game. I mean,
Well,
I had two
the
kids.
reality of it is I
Every
can't.
time I get on my son, he'd say, well, look at my brother.
I know. Well, but
Well, I'm
here's
talking
the
to
thing.
you.
The reality of it is if I say, you need to mow your lawn, and you're not a renter, and you don't mow your lawn, I have to fine you. If you're a renter and you aren't mowing your lawn, and I say, you need to mow your lawn, I have to fine you. And then if you don't do it, then I pull your permit. But we didn't have all those Ts. We can say we can pull it, but we have nothing to back it up with. Now we do.
And, you know, I brought up this is the 9th meeting I've had on this particular subject in the
understand.
last 2 years. 9th time, whether it's POA meetings, ACC meeting with yourself, meeting with your predecessor, Winston, meeting with codes enforcement people, having them at my house, all these. Just this year alone, as I said, we've had 5 reports of problems at this location and 10 different violations, and yet the ACC renewed that permit without discussion. You know, I went to the ACC 2 years ago and said, hey, this is a problem. They said, well, we can't just take your word for it. Take pictures, document, file reports, and we'll look at it when the time for renewal comes up. And just without any discussion, that thing was renewed.
So let's talk about a couple things, since you brought them up.
Well, and let me say too, so there's a house being built across the street,
Yeah.
and I get a thing saying, oh, this is a courtesy notice, there's a house being built over here, you know, if you want to have any input on that. But there's none of that that's put out for any of these short-term rentals. There was a house that sold right next to me. My fear was, this is going to be a short-term rental, and I'm going to be sandwiched between 2 of these things. I mean, and that could happen to anybody, especially if you live on the water or near the golf course or across the street from the water. This can happen to you. It may just be me and a few others right now, but it could be any of you, and without notice. And that's the way it's going to go. And, you know, these things are growing. It's a bad trend. It's a troublesome trend that's happening in this community right here. And I guarantee you'll be singing a different tune when it is you. And, you know, there's cars parked everywhere. It's loud. There was 20 people staying in that house this month. In what time? With 7 cars on the premises.
So here, let's stop on that and let's pause just for a second. 7 cars on property. Are they in the street or in the parking lot?
Sometimes they're in the street. In fact, there's been 3 parking violations on that property this year alone.
Okay, well, now if there's 3 parking violations on there, they're going to be out of a lot of money. But the reality of it is, I don't have a law that I can point to and say, I can't put 20 people in a house. I can say you can't park 20 cars on the street. That I can do. That I can not only fine them for, I can have the cars towed. I can have all of those things. But up until this is passed, I could not. And still can't until that's passed.
And like I say, there are some things about, oh, if you're overnight parking, we can tow you and so that.
Sure.
I doubt there's been any towing going on.
So here's the problem. When you call me up and say, there's cars parked on the street, there's nobody here. Up until recently, there would be nobody here. Currently, we have a second shift with our public service and Public Works and Public Service there, and they have a second shift. If somebody has a problem with somebody parking on the street, these guys are here to what? Is it 11 or 10? They're here at 11 o'clock at night. That's when you call. That's when we can come out and do that. Now, that's new. I get it. It's never been there before, but we have that now. And that's something that we can do to begin to mitigate some of the silliness that goes on.
I wish the parking was the worst problem at
I
that house.
understand.
I really
I know
do.
that-
I mean, I've
yeah,
seen
that's
people
not.
go down to the lake and throw a skillet full of old grease into the water and then rinse the pot out. It's like a camp. I mean, they're treating it like it's an old camp, you know, brushing their teeth out, spitting it onto the grass
Well,
behind the back. It's
All I
just-
can say is that we're working in that direction. It's not the answer you want, but it is the facts. We are working in the direction to control that.
You know, one thing.
Hang on, I got a hand going up here.
Oh.
Correct, and that's what I was, yeah, that's what I was getting at, is now we can take action.
But there
And so
were
I don't want you to think that.
some things that we could have done, which was pulled permits. That
Well,
was
it's not,
never done.
unfortunately, without that ability in our governing documents, it's not that simple, because you have to understand, you as a homeowner have recourse. You do.
Well, I guess it's
You can come
smooth.
back to the board and
I
sell
guess
them.
it's sell. I mean, the
And
people
you can
across the
come
street
back and say,
did.
you've lost you took away my business, you took away my income, the list goes on and on and on. So unless we have the proper management to do this, and I know you're frustrated, and I
I am
understand it.
frustrated.
But, and I get it, I'm not trying to placate you, I really do understand that.
I'm very frustrated.
And so my comment still is and always will be, until the homeowners make a decision about what they want in terms of rentals in Tellico Village, this will plow on. We can make it difficult for them, make them behave, clean up a lot of the things you're talking about.
I mean, it's
but it
weeds,
isn't
mow
gonna
your
stop it.
grass, cut the bushes, you know, and it shouldn't take people to have to turn in a complaint to get somebody to mow the grass or trim the bushes or
I
cut the
wish
weeds.
that were true.
You know?
I really wish that were true.
And
Bob.
in really short-term rentals, what they, I mean, especially these unmanned vacation rentals that can come one at a time. I mean, people are coming there, they're like, I paid my money, I'm gonna have a good time.
Sure.
And, you know, you got all these people coming in the middle of the night, leaving early in the morning. But I want to read one more thing and I'll sit down, because the mission of the POA, and I think the meeting of the POA committee, every time they meet, should read the mission statement. When I was employed, when I was on committees, we started the meeting by reading the mission statement, so we never got off track. And the mission statement says, to enhance and preserve the Tellico Village quality of life, social fabric, property values, and overall member value through effective and efficient management of the association. And I just don't see how these short-term rentals accomplish any of that. These vacation rentals, I mean, I'm not talking about the guy who's renting out his room, because there's different definitions of what is a
But see,
short-term
this,
rental.
and see, you just crossed a bridge. You just crossed a bridge. You can't tell a guy, you can rent out your room because you're there and you can follow it, but you can't tell your neighbor that they can't rent out their house for 3 days. You can't have it both ways. And I get what you're saying, but my answer to that is, they're short-term rentals that most people don't even know they're short-term rentals, because they manage them appropriately, they take care of them, they take care of their lawns, they manage the people who are in there.
Absolutely.
And so that's, the issue is, we have to address the offenders. We can't change the entire community because 3 people are doing a bad job.
Now, one thing is, there's
I don't
more
know,
than 3.
three,
And I want to say before I sit down, Chet, there's a lot of people that always approach me and they says, oh, the same thing's happening to me. I said, well, how many times have you filed a complaint? Well, I don't want to get involved. Or I don't want to do that. You know, I said, what do you do about the trash can? Well, I just roll it back to the thing. It says, well, you know, if you're not filing complaints.
It's hard for me to know.
It's hard for anybody. Everybody thinks everything's good to go. You know, if you're not filing complaints, and I know nobody wants to make this their hobby. I didn't want it to be my retirement hobby, but
Yeah.
it has become so, unfortunately. It's not what I wanted to be here this afternoon.
Sure.
But it's where I'm at.
Well, I thought you liked to come and hear me.
God, I don't.
Wow.
I really don't, man.
Wow.
I wish I didn't know you. I wish you, maybe I should say, I wish you didn't know me. And so,
That's
but,
crushing.
you know, I just want to encourage everybody, if you're having problems with this, go to a help spot, fill it out. Our codes enforcement people are very busy, and they're much more reactive than proactive. A lot of times, you know, they're going and covering a lot of space, like we talked about before, and if you're not making complaints, they may not catch everything or notice everything or all these things that are happening on and on.
In a timely
And these-
fashion.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
All right,
true.
well.
I agree. Go
I'll
to
say
that
my
help
piece.
spot.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Gingrich from Chiscajilly Way. I know I didn't say it right. I
don't say it
wrote
right
this
either,
right
so you're
before
good.
I left, so I hope I can read my writing. July 1st was the 8th anniversary of us moving here to Tellico Village. I've always found it difficult to communicate within Tellico Village. It's worse now, and most communication with management staff and the board is one-way communication. I heard a rumor that the POA board was considering defunding the library. Then I heard nothing until I got an email this weekend. We moved here because I heard an advertisement on the radio that said, land for sale, Tellico Lake, prices reduced. When I looked online, and it said it was Tennessee, I found Tellico Village. I was really excited because you have a community theater here. Jim and I don't golf, fish, boat, or play pickleball. I did spend a lot of time in Harrisburg at the Pennsylvania State Library, and reading and learning are very important to both Jim and me. I suspect our marketing department highlights our wonderful library in trying to convince people to move here. When I moved here, I discovered the library, and I learned of its proud history. Despite obstacles and adversity, especially financial, because of many dedicated people, it managed to survive and thrive. Every dollar and penny counts, and I ask that the POA board think of the human beings involved, the great benefit our library provides to many villagers and others even outside of Tellico Village. Please find a way to continue funding the very small amount you have provided yearly in the past. It is our village, our library, and our money too. If you don't know about this, please contact someone to find out more information and sign the petition. And if you think it's important that we have the great library that we have, please ask the board to also continue funding it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jim Stevenson, and today I'm celebrating my 3rd week anniversary in Tellico Village.
All right.
Now, the reason I'm here is because you struck a nerve when you start talking about short-term rentals. All right? I'm here because of short-term rental situation that happened on Hilton Head Island, where I lived, where many people go there to vacation. So there's tons of short-term rentals, but they're destroying the neighborhoods there. Seriously, they're like termites in your house. You start letting them in, you can't do anything about it.
Correct.
And I'm beginning to see that here. Now, I have a person across the street from me that owns a house that rents his house out for short-term rental. I had no idea I was moving into that. And so at various hours of the night, these people are like pulling up and backing down into their driveway. Well, guess what? I'm up on the hill. And their headlights are shining in my bedroom windows, and I'm seeing things I don't like. And it really concerns me that if you don't get a handle on this quickly, you're going to have major problems in this community. And
I don't disagree one bit. And so I'll get on my soapbox again, and all of you have heard it, and in fact, I'm the guy who brought it up. And that is, I have zero, and the board, by the way, has zero ability to stop rentals in any shape, form, or fashion. And in fact, the only thing I need to remind you of, let's just say magically, that I could get 67% of you to vote yes to control rentals and put a cap on them and control the type of renting and all of the things that you are justly complaining about.
you know,
It will take that. That's what it will take. If I can't get
and there's no way
67%
to
of you, and
control
you guys have to
behavior
do
of
it.
personnel that are renting the homes. When you see them doing things, you can report them,
Sure.
but unless you're videotaping it all, you can't prove anything. It's
Well, the reality of it is, though, there are ways we can make it difficult for them. And now that we have the teeth to make it difficult for them, which we've not had, and you're unaware of this, and I know that my buddy there who's been talking about this for the last 9 meetings he's been to, he's correct in what he's saying. I don't mean to imply he's not. But up until this point, I've not had the ability to go, yeah, that's going to cost you. And ultimately, what people don't understand, and I'm trying not to play this up too big because I don't want to frighten people about, oh, the big bad POA. But the reality of it is when I put a lien on your house, you got 120 days and I'm going to own it. Now, do you understand that you can lose your house for $500?
Yeah.
I mean, the law's kind of crazy when it comes to putting liens on houses. And I'm exaggerating to a certain degree, but the reality of it is you can have your house put with a lien on it for a very little amount of money compared to the value of your home. So when I say I'm going to control some of this, that's the only teeth I got. I can fine them, and if they don't pay the fines, then I'm going to start putting a lien on our property. And by the way, if I put a lien on the property, I pull their ability to rent and all the other good things that go along with that. Now, that all sounds well and good. But the reality is, if I don't have a limit, I can still have 60% of the community with a bunch of really great VRBOs in it, and I can't stop it. We have no limits. We have no control. The documents leave us completely wide open to rentals, period. I don't know how to spell that any clearer than that. And so if everybody is concerned, and I'll say this out loud in front of all of you, you should be. You got to do something about it. You've got to make that decision. You've got to come forward and advise the board, this is what you want to do. And then you got to talk to your neighbors, because 67% of you won't vote for anything. That's our problem. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. You won't. And it's got to change if we want to act change, because by the time there's blood on the floor and all of you are concerned, and I can easily get 67%, it's too late. You're already at 80% rentals, and you're done. So that's why I'm saying you guys as homeowners have to step forward and say, we need to change this. Now, I need to also let you know, Tennessee has some very interesting laws. Let's just say that by some magic, 67% of the community votes yes to limit rentals, and we get it done by the end of this year, and we say, we're only going to accept 9% of the community or 5% or whatever. Keep in mind, 10% of the community being in rentals is over 600 homes. So that kind of puts it in perspective for you. But let's just say you say 5%. Well, guess what? If there's more, if there's more than 5% in the community already renting, according to Tennessee law, they're grandfathered in and you can't stop them. Not short term, long term. So that was a nice little twist that I came across. So all I'm trying to say is we have to make these decisions. If you want change, you have to act on it, because some things are beyond my control and beyond the board's control. That's the documents. That's the way they were laid out. Good, bad, or indifferent, crazy as that may be, that is the way it's laid out. And the gentleman's not correct. I managed a Del Webb in Georgia. I was friends with the manager of the Del Webb out in you just told it to me and I've lost it because I got off on well, not in Peachtree, but out on the coast in North Carolina.
What, Hilton Head?
Hilton Head.
Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina. Hilton Head, South Carolina. And it was, and he was crying the blues to me about he can't get it changed, he can't do it, the homeowners won't vote on it. And again, by the time you want to vote on it, there'll be so many renters, they're not going to vote you out. That would be cutting their nose off to spite their face. And not all renters are bad. So if people are sitting in this audience thinking, I think all renters are bad, you're wrong. The community needs a certain level of short-term rentals. The community needs long-term rentals. I personally could not have lived here without having a long-term rental, which actually turned into a short-term rental because I built a house. But I needed that. So it was to my benefit to have that, and I had I hope I was a good community servant, but nonetheless, I lived in a rental, and the person who owned that rental took care of it. So they're there. There's good people out here renting, but we have to set the standards, and we as homeowners are the only ones who can. I can stand up here and jump up and down and tell you it's bad, the evils, and, Satan's coming soon, and all those things. It doesn't matter. You are the ones who have to step off and step up.
Now, Chet, a lot of these are owned by businesses. It's not like, oh, this is just some person.
Guys, again, it doesn't matter. As long as you set the rule, whether you're a trust fund, a business that buys it, or a real estate group that buys it, any of that, doesn't matter. If the rule's there, it's there. It applies to them. They can't skirt that. But I also need to tell you a quick story, which I tell all the time, just to set the stage. I managed a high-rise in downtown Atlanta, very, very high-end, stupid money for the penthouse. Guy bought the thing, wanted to rent it out. And I said, well, you know, you're not on the rental list. There's like 5 people ahead of you wanting to rent in this building. And they had a limit, and they had rules. And he said, well, I want to rent it out for $5,000 a month. And I said, I don't care what you rent it for. And so he said, so what's the fine if I rent it out against that? And I said, it's $750 a month. So you know how that story ended. Every month I got a check for $750. He considered it a cost of doing business. So we have to be careful as we play the game. We have to understand what we're up against, and you as a community have to understand what you really want. Do we want to be Norris Lake with 85% rentals? Do we want to be that kind of community? Is that what we're after? And if it is, then sit quiet. If it isn't, then you as homeowners are going to have to step up and say, we got to come up with a plan here. We got to figure out a way to do this. I mean, I can give you the rules. I can show you how to set it up where there's a percentage you agree to, and you can put in the rules. You can have wait lists. You can do all those things. But I got 2 problems right away. Everybody here, I think right now, we believe that the rental number is approximately 100 homes in this community. How many of you actually believe there's only 100 homes being rented in this community? No, I don't see a hand up, nor do I. And so that's why I'm saying we have to find ways to make this manageable. Get people to admit, yeah, I'm renting my house. How do I, what are the rules? I don't want to take people's livelihoods away from it. And I can guarantee you, by the way, moving forward in the future, as you die off and your kids get your house, they're probably not going to sell it. They're going to want to do what? Rent it. Because it's income forever. And you can't blame them for that. But if we don't have something in place to guide that, it will run amok.
So is there anything being done right now to organize, to come up with some course of action so that you can address the issue appropriately, rather than just say it takes 2/3 of the vote here and
Well, so far,
that's never going to happen?
everybody we've all talked about it. I've given everybody the guidelines. So we have to come up with what it is we want to do. I can put that together. I'm already putting that together. But the homeowners have not come to the board and say, look, we're going to rally around this. We're going to put it together. To give you an example, we made 2 changes in our documents 3 years ago? 4 years ago? Okay, in 2012, we made changes to our document which were, for all practical purposes, editorial. They really didn't have any impact on the community, but they needed to be cleaned up. That took us 2 years, and how much money? 50 or 60,000 to get something that had really no impact on the community done. Now, granted, this has impact. This has value to the community. So the reason it cost so much is because we had to drag you to the party kicking and screaming. Honestly, that's the reason. So we could put in place where we would have, I'll use Chota as an example, or here, we could have 47 notaries here and have all the sheets, and you come in and sign off on it and get it notarized. That's the other gotcha that our lovely documents have. Your vote doesn't count unless it's notarized. I'm not telling you this is smart or great. It's stupid, but that's the game we have to play.
If I may chime in real quick, we had a question from the audience, and I think it goes right along with where we are in this discussion. They are asking, how will the POA know when someone is renting but they don't have a permit? So my response was we have to rely a lot of times on the owner, just to be honest. Otherwise, we get screenshots from property owners when I see a VRBO ad. People will put it on Nextdoor that their home is for rent, and so we send it to our ACC department and say, hey, can you check this house and see if they're renting or if they have a permit? Really comments from the neighbors, feedback, they may call ACC and say, hey, we think there's a rental property next to us. Can you check if there's a permit? Just real quick, keep in mind, when we see something on a VRBO site, it doesn't have the physical address. It's a safety issue that they have. You have to actually rent the property, and then it gives you a physical address. So we rely on our Public Works and ACC guys to look at the photo and say, hey, have you ever seen this house in Tellico Village before? And that is really what it takes. So right now, if they don't have a permit and they're not being honest, we really do rely on neighbors and property owners to say, hey, we think they're renting. So,
Is there a place where we can check on that, Jeff, where we can see what houses are or are not on those?
No. Regrettably, there's not.
I know how many propane tank permits have been issued, irrigation permits that are issued every month. But that shows up on the ACC's agenda.
Well, I mean, any permit that the ACC has done, you can see.
Including rentals?
Well, it's a permit, brother. We don't distinguish. You know, it's no different than a building permit or a gas line permit. Yes, sir, go. We got about 5 more minutes.
Chet, Mike Robbins, thank you for addressing Norris Lake. The long-term rentals, usually people that are coming in have to sign a contract. And the
Right.
people that are renting sometimes only rent to people that are going to build here. On these short-term rentals, if there was a movement and we got 2/3 of the people to vote, have you and the board come up with a percentage yet of what's going to be allowable? And also, I feel horrible for things that are happening with this gentleman back here.
Me too.
When I refer to a common law nuisance and an individual goes to a private attorney, that owner of that house is responsible for everything going on in that house. I don't have time to elaborate on it today, but anyway, food for thought, and I'm glad he brought it up today.
All right. Go
Doug
ahead, sir.
Paul from Tenasseee. Just one further question, elaboration there. If we have to get every vote notarized, what would that look like? Could we have notary days and build this thing
Oh,
with
sure.
signatures over time?
And it
pay
doesn't have
for
to be done in a day.
notaries
You're
and
right.
Put it in Telegram and
We
say,
could
here's this
schedule,
day
yeah,
and
we could
pay the
schedule every
notaries
Thursday and
and-
Friday for 6 months to be, come sign and get notarized and have notaries. And, you know, we have a ton of notaries in the neighborhood. You know, half the staff could go out and get their license if we had to. It'd still
So-
be cheaper than that. And
Put
all
that
I'm
in
saying
plan.
is, yes, the answer is we could put that kind of movement together. But again, there is, what, 60, not even 60 people in this room. It takes
It's going to take time.
4,500
But if we don't
people.
start, we'll never get there.
We gotta start
So we
somewhere.
can always update
Yep.
it and say where we are. and-
Yep.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chet. Linda Garza. Along the lines of the rentals.
Yes.
Everything you said, I agree 100%. I think it's important that if there is going to be a community effort to do this, you guys, we need a leader. Somebody has to, you're asking Chet for a lot of answers to questions that you haven't even answered yet. So if this is really something that the community wants to get behind and do, find your leader and form that committee and take the solution to Chet, because you're relying on him to do it all. We're a lot stronger than one person is, and that's all I'll have to say about that. I mean, there's an opportunity, there's leaders here, find them, get them to do most of the work, because he'll make it happen if you get behind it. If you're not going to get behind it, I'm going to do what Chet's doing. I'm waiting on you guys. So that's just my comment on rentals. In regards to the permit process and the changes, can you talk to us about, you said the board needs to vote on it,
Yes, this.
so that's coming up in August.
Yes, ma'am.
If I were to put in a permit, whether it's short-term rental or to build a structure on my property, talk to us about the time frame. Where do I go? How do I do it? If I have a contractor that I want to show up next week to do this project, how long does it take for me to get a permit, and where do I go?
So the best place for you to go to get a permit is to come to my office up on the hill, and if you come in, there's a window dead ahead. Yeah, no. Anyway, there's a permit window dead ahead as you walk in. If you walk to that, there's a lady there named Holly, and she will give you direction on what you need. You tell her the project you have, she'll give you instructions on what to tell your contractor and all of the above, and then tell you the steps. The ACC meets currently, is it once or twice? Twice a month now. And in doing so, we do that to your point, so there's not a lot of lag. You ask a question, you get an answer. And the goal that I've been pushing the ACC to do is, you all know the answers. Let's help the people at the front window, not in the ACC meeting, about what they need to have and what they need to do. Because by the time they get to the meeting, you want it to be a bless this and move on, or no, sorry, you can't do it. And we want to veer off as many as possible of the sorry, you can't do it, and let them find another way first. Sir?
Just a quick comment. Chet keeps talking about the covenants and restrictions, and I don't think people understand what covenants and restrictions are. They're the same as a deed. So when you execute a covenant and restriction change and you require a notary, that's got to be filed with the county clerk's office. That runs with the land. So it's a big deal to change the CNRs. And we attempted to do that. We did do that about 10 years ago. And it was like pulling teeth just to change a procedural thing in there that made it easier for the POA to make changes to the CNRs. So this is not some little thing you do because people are upset about short-term rentals or VRBOs or whatever. You need some guidance from the board on this. I think the lawyer needs to write something up and explain to Tellico villagers what CNRs are. They're just like a deed. It's a heavy-duty thing that gets filed and it runs with the land. So this is a big deal when you look to get 2/3 of the residents of Tellico Village to sign on to any of these. It is going to be a Herculean task, I guarantee you, because people who were in favor of short-term rentals or whatever are going to fight it, and a lot of people are going to think there's some kind of game going on here.
Sure.
So it's not going to be easy. Anyway, thank you.
Valid points. All property owners.
Hey, Chet, Jim Roccasalvo.
Yeah.
Built my house in 2005, and we lived through where real estate investors came in and bought 100 lots at a time. It's all water under the bridge. My question to you is, you said that the builders could carry 10 lots. Is that in their building portfolio? Are they paying POA dues on it? Because several of the new builders might have 30 lots in their portfolio. They only could buy now 10. And are they paying POA dues like the rest of the people in the village?
Well, it's my understanding that if somebody has a deed that says Tellico Village on it, they've got $160-something a month bill.
So my understanding is now with all builders that own lots that haven't been built on yet have to pay POA dues.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the other question is, Tenazzi came up, and everybody knows I talk about Tenazzi now and then. And that last proposal.
Once in a while.
Well, the last, Taylor?
Tyler?
The architect?
Yeah, Tyler.
With a stroke of a pen, he took the KLM docks out from in front of the proposed building and swung it into the cove, which is taking away a waterway, a recreational waterway for people that come in and boat and tie off. Now, it's a non-wake cove.
Yep.
And at any given time, there's 4 to 6 boats could be tied off there. There's paddle boarders, kayakers, and the reason they're there is because they're not out on the big water or any other cove being swamped. So he proposed, with a swipe of a pen, to swing those docks all the way deeper in the cove, where if you added your guest docks in front of the new building and these docks back farther into the cove, there's no tying off in between, because the rule is you have to be 100 yards away from docks, 300 feet from the electrical that's in it, and they would totally take away a recreational cove instead of leaving the docks where they're at. And I understand we're here for parking for the Tenazzi build-out,
Well, no, I think that's a key point, too.
and people could park at the back. People that are boating could go between the buildings in order to get to the boat docks without moving the boat docks, moving the electric, and moving water at a cost to the village also. So that's something that needs to be taken into consideration.
Sure. I don't disagree.
Okay.
And it's one of the items that we're looking at. And by the way, just so you know, a stroke of a pen means nothing unless
I
it's on a check.
understand that. I'm just saying that, but
So-
every one of his proposals, he had the docks moved.
Sure, that's correct. And doesn't mean it's going to happen because, number one, I don't have permission from TVA to do that.
Right.
And he can draw it all day long, but
Yeah,
until
that's a
TVA says
26A.
yes, then the answer is
Correct.
no. All right, but I appreciate that. Okay, last guy. We got to be quick here.
Chet Dobby Dobson, Chota.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the builders paying the $160 or whatever it is a month.
They pay dues like everybody else. They own the property.
That's what I wanted to ask you, is because the builder that built my house came back to me, I guess, 2 years ago and asked me to send a recommendation in on him because he could get a classification with whoever handles the sale of lots. These are the lots that the POA owns, as I understand it. That if he as a builder was a recommended or a preferred builder, I believe he's with term, that he could apparently buy the lot and have 12 months before he had to begin paying the dues. So is that not in effect anymore?
As far as I know, that's not in effect anymore, but I can't honestly answer that one. I've not asked that question, and I don't think marketing is handling in that way. But I also need everyone to understand, and I'm not sure why it's that way, but people somehow miss the fact that if a builder comes in and he buys land, where's that money go?
What?
Right into the POA.
So the way the builder program works is we take the proceeds and we apply 12-month assessments, so they actually pay ahead 12 months. We take that from the profit that we make on the lot, and she applies that for 12 months. So yeah, technically, they don't bring us a check every 12 months because we've taken their money in advance out of their sales, and we apply it there.
So when they buy the 10 lots, we're taking 10 months' worth of assessments out of every single one of or 12 out of every single one of those lots and putting it in the assessments. They're paying it.
That doesn't make sense to me, but
Well, instead of asking them to give me a check, I've just said, this is going to be the cost, and we bill that cost into the cost of the lot. And then we take that part.
But if you're asking $10,000 for a lot.
Yeah.
And they buy 10 of them, they give you $100,000 for that, then you're going to take their first year's dues for 10 lots out of that money?
Yes.
Then they're not paying that first year.
But you need to understand, the amount that we're asking for is more than what the land is worth. It's to include the assessments.
Well, I beg to differ with you. My neighbor bought the lot behind her, this has been 3 years ago, $1,500.
Sure. There's lots that are going.
What I'm saying is the POA was anxious
To
at
sell
that
lots.
time to get lots, and I don't know if we've changed our marketing thinking
We're not
enough
that
now for.
we're not that anxious anymore.
Huh?
We're not that anxious. Yeah.
Okay.
We're not that excited about selling lots. Okay, I appreciate, and I mean this sincerely, I know I say it all the time, but it is my honest, heartfelt opinion that I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to come and listen and come and participate. It is a good thing that you do for your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.